Hi, Patrick here. Have Cheetah will view, and it's time for Dollar Theater, the Voters Edition, to see which movie won the week and the one movie that me and the Cheetah watched and reviewed. So this week, if you noticed, anybody who's noticed that we generally try to have themes on this series of film reviews, and for this week, we decided to do the Western film. Of course, you know, my channel is named after one of the best Western TV series ever made, Have Gun Will Travel. So doing a Western theme was not very hard to do, and it really wasn't hard to do. Is when you got a multi-pack of 20 movies to pick from. So I threw out 4 movies this week for you guys to vote on. Long Live Your Death with the mighty Franco Nero. Me and the Bat watched Django with Franco Nero. So I thought, well, let's see what happens. Um, when you talk about spaghetti westerns, a lot of the times the first name mentioned is Clint Eastwood. The second name mentioned is Lee Van Cleef. And Lee Van Cleef did make it this week, Beyond the Law from 1968. And then there's a couple of other really well-known spaghetti western figures. Now, it's called Trinity and Sartana Are Coming. But we know that Sartana and especially Trinity are actually done by a lot more famous actors. Trinity was done by Terence Hill, and Sartana, I believe, was played by a multitude of different actors. But this is with Robert Widmark, not Richard Widmark. I know people are going like, did Richard Widmark do a spaghetti western? No, he did not. Next, we did The Proud and Damned. The Proud and Damned. It's not The Proud and the Damned. It's The Proud and Damned, and that came from 1972 with Chuck Connors. So of all those, I was wondering which one would win, and pretty much from wire to wire, really not surprised actually. To tell you the truth, I don't know why, because I would think that Lee Van Cleef would have just walked away with this. But the movie with Chuck Connors actually took care of business this week with 46% of the vote. Now, I didn't know anything about the Proud and the Damned other than Chuck Connors. And of course, Chuck Connors is very well known both in Western lore for the Rifleman, and he's also well known in the horror community because he's done a few things in horror, including Tourist Trap. So I was a little bit surprised. Not really surprised, but I was like, okay. I didn't know anything about this film except for 2 things. Going into it, I said 1972. There's going to be 2 things that are going to happen at the end of this movie, without me even watching it. One, ain't no way Chuck Connors is making it to the end of the film. You know he's going to buy it in the middle of the movie. 2, everybody's going to die at the end of this movie. Everybody's going to buy it because it's the 70s, right? There was no such thing as a happy ending in the 1970s, and this is 1972. So you already know what was already going to start to happen. All right. So basically, the Proud, the Proud and the Damned and the Proud, whatever you want to call it, it features 4 gentlemen from the Civil War. They fought for the Confederacy, and they're just basically just riding their lives away. Chuck Connors plays their leader, Will Hansen. He's joined by Ike, played by Aaron Kincaid. Smokey Roberts plays Jeb. Hank Cat plays Hank. And Peter Ford, who was Glenn Ford's son, he played Billy. And how far south have these guys ridden? These guys left Texas, and they have been riding ever since, and they have ridden all the way down to Columbia. That's a long way to ride. So they're just continuing to go south, and they happen to come across a wannabe general, a wannabe dictator, and they capture the boys, and they say, hey, we could hang you, we could, you're Americans, we could hang you, but we're going to give you a chance to redeem yourselves by going inside this last bastion of freedom, because this wannabe tyrant is trying to take over all of the land, but the small valley is holding out. He says, I want you to go down there and basically, do a reconnaissance. You have 3 days to tell me how many men they have, how many weapons they have, and get back and give me that information, or else I'll hang you. Well, with that being said, and all, but the general's also pretty nice, and he says, well, if you could do that, great. I'm going to give you some incentive, and he gives him a bag of gold. He says, if you can do this within 3 days and come back, I won't hang you. I'll also give you the other bag of gold, and then you can go on your way. So they basically have no choice. They ride down to the small village, and they meet the villagers, and led by the mayor. The mayor is played by none other than Cesar Romero, who plays the mayor of San Carlos. Um, and so the men, they're told to basically, we like you, but we don't like you walking around with guns on your hips. So we're going to go ahead and keep those here. But you can go anywhere else you want. You can talk to anybody else you want, but we just don't want you to do it with guns. So the boys go ahead and they do that, and they meet different ladies, and including a young gypsy family that actually led the boys to San Carlos. They didn't know that they were surprised to find out that the family's underneath the reign of the evil General Martinez. Um, but Will falls in love with the daughter of the gypsy family. He falls in love with her, and he wants to, he wants to woo her, and the boys are starting to feel, hey, this valley's not so bad after all. We sort of like it here. But they do have that hanging over their head that they have to figure out how to get out of General Martinez's, noose, and to do their job, and also be able to help the people that they've grown to like here. Um, and when and the gypsy father is not too happy with the fact that his daughter is wooing an American, and he takes great steps to stop her by disfiguring her. And that causes Will to respond in kind, and and so the boys are locked up past their 3 days. The general has made it, or had made an arrangement to have them meet at a certain area, and since they were all locked up, they couldn't do it. So now they're in deep trouble. And well, let's just say that my two things about this movie were spot on. Nobody makes it out, and yes, and Chuck Connors buys it in the middle of the movie. But I got to tell you that this movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect anything from it at all, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how much I was engaged with it. This came out in 1972, so there is a lot of Vietnam references to it. A sappy song, like a hippie song playing in the beginning of it. Certain words that were used, including the word pacification, which really, as soon as you heard that word, you're going like ding, 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 because that's one of the things that we were trying to do in the Vietnam War was pacify the VC, or pacifying the Vietnamese. Um, many times it was commented how this war was not their war, or they were fighting somebody else's war, and again, it had a lot to do with the Vietnam, which was going on at that time, and wouldn't end for another 2 years after this movie came out. Uh, the Proud the Dam did have a troubling history about getting out, as far as distributed, being distributed. The gentleman who who had produced this film, he had had a pretty decent time, easy time, getting his other films out there to Hollywood. But this time he had a hard time, and that caused a lot of strife between the directors and the other producers. That this movie took 3 years for it to make it to market. I believe why it came out. I believe it. Yeah, it came out. So it was in the '60s. So '69, this film was made and filmed in Colombia. It didn't get a release until '72. Was this, the Vietnam War was still was going. So that's the reason why you heard a lot of Vietnam references to this. I like this movie. I liked it. I thought it's a good solid watch. If you're a Western fan, a Chuck Connors fan, definitely worth the watch. I would say it was rated PG. The violence was cut out a little bit. The language was cut out. Um, but overall, for what it is, it's not a bad movie. It's okay. It's not going to burn your brain cells or anything like that. It's not super heavy. Chuck Connors looked great. He looked, he looked just as good as he did when he was in The Rifleman. You could hardly tell he had barely aged at all. And but overall, yeah, I liked it, and I would recommend it. This came out on the multi-pack. There's no special features on it. Um, yeah, and it is what it is. All right, I don't know what the four next movies are we're going to be putting up, but we're going to be putting up four today. Just go to my community tab and see what me and the Cheetah are going to have you guys vote on for next week. And we'll see you next Friday for another a Dollar Theater Voters Edition film review. Take care, and thank you for watching. Peace.